Hello and welcome to the Brands that India made. Today we're going to discuss Mr. Biki Oberoi or Prithviraj Singh Oberoi. We lost him uh, a few days ago, and he's someone who people all over the world in the hospitality industry and across industries look up to. Today we have someone who knew him personally, so he is to do all the talking, and we are to remember Mr. Biki Oberoi and the man he was and the chain he built. And as Mr. Suhail said, speaks the brands that India made, and he is also going to speak about the brand that Mr. Biki Oberoi made, which is the Oberoi chain of hotels. As we all know, Mr. Suhail Seth is brand advisor to Fortune 500 companies and a very well-known name in this sector. Good to see you, Mr. Seth, and looking forward to some interesting anecdotes as usual. What people are interested to know is when you first met Mr. Biki Oberoi. When was this?
So it's very interesting. Yeah. So there is an organization called WTTC, World Travel and Tourism Council. They're a global organization and they have country chapters. So they wanted to start their India chapter. Mr. Oberoi, Biki, was the chairman. I was asked to do a strategy presentation on three verticals, three principles. Basically, number one, how do we get the government to take tourism more seriously? Number two, what is it that the hotel industry, along with tour operators, travel agencies, need to do? And number three, how do we position India? Remember, this was before Incredible India campaign and all that. So I was asked to come to Agra. And my presentation, and even then, Tarun, I never made a PowerPoint presentation or so I just spoke. So I was asked by Jean-Claude Baumgarten, who was the Secretary General, to meet Biki Oberoi. I went up to his suite. There was Biki, Biki's partner, Reena Baroa, and me. And I looked at him, and he was sitting on the terrace with the Taj Mahal visible and sipping a Bloody Mary. I said, "You are the modern day Shah Jahan. You haven't built a palace for a woman, but you built a hotel for brand India." And he burst out laughing. And I have to say, I mean, you can ask people who you know very well and, common friends. From that day on, we became friends. We often travel to hotel openings together. We travel to the opening of Oberoi Vilas, where the whole goddamn evening was spent in him worrying about the temperature of the heated water that was flowing through the pool that was running alongside all the rooms. That was his thing. But why did we share the interest that we did? I remember getting into a massive debate with him saying that I disagree with the length of the stem of the flowers in the vases on the tables that you have placed. Why? Let's say Tarun Nange and Suhail are sitting across a table. The last thing I want to do is have a goddamn rose which is sticking in the middle and I can't see Tarun's face. So what would people do? They would remove the vase and put it to the side. Taki, I can see your face. And he agreed. He says, "Yeah, you're right." I said, people come to hotels to be seen and to see each other. So, many years later, I gave him the example of the Plaza. Right now I'm in New York and the Plaza redid its whole, hotel. And in the coffee shop, they had high back chairs. So a Tarun Nangia couldn't see who was actually sitting and having breakfast. But the whole idea was for people having breakfast to tell Tarun Nangia that, "Look, my friend, I can afford the Plaza." So these were the quirks. I mean, there are a zillion that I could take about 3 hours. Then one day, I wrote an article called, "Will Someone Please Kill My Butler?" Please remember, in about 2001, 2002, this whole butler fad had begun in hotels. The butlers were almost part of your skin. That's how close and proximate they were told to be. So my whole article's emphasis was that a butler must be like Jeeves, as in Wodehouse. He must be there, but he mustn't be visible. He must be heard, never seen. He must do, but never the act shall be revealed. And I wrote this 1-page article or 2-page article. After about 15 days, I started getting calls from people at the Oberoi saying, by the way, we loved your piece. I said, how the hell did you get it? Oh, Mr. Oberoi has forwarded it to us as mandatory read. Then obviously we used to talk. We went for Nasli's son's wedding, for Jay's wedding together. Even in the plane, the mat, the crockery, the cutlery, we discussed Cutipole, which is a brand of cutlery. We discussed Mud Australia. But at his heart, he's a simple Punjabi. What did he like? He liked urad chane ki dal, bhindi, chapatis with a little bit of ghee. Over the years, obviously, and he had a voracious appetite. So, all this thing about being very classy and all that, he was. But at the heart of it, he was a nice, simple Sardar, Mona Sardar. But the interesting part is that he never let go. And that's a blessing, it's also a curse. He was the banyan tree in whose shade nothing grew. Having said that, you look at a Vikram or an Arjun today, they are cut from the same cloth. And I'm glad. Now, you'll be shocked. If you remember, I don't know if you were a child then, there was an audacious bid made by Yogi Deveshwar of ITC where he took a position in the Oberoi. And Biki was always worried that a hostile takeover ho jayega. At that point in time, he put Nasli on the board. Field Marshal Manekshaw was already on the board, thinking that Nasli will help sort out the government issues, because at that time Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, Jaswant Singh was Finance Minister, Jaswant Singh and Nasli were very close. But nothing happened. They couldn't ward off Yogi. Many years later, Amarjit Singh became an investor precisely as a white knight. That didn't work out. Then came in Reliance. And I have a story here. I'm the only person who Biki Oberoi ever invited to address his only sales and marketing conference he's ever had. That sales and marketing conference was at the Oberoi, Bombay. Just before that, I was with Mr. Ambani, with Mukesh, in Maker Chambers 4. And Mukesh said, Abhi kahan ja raha hai? I said, I'm going, I have a speech to deliver. So he's saying, Biki ji ko bolo, he want to rent the area outside, which is now the Trident, which in the earlier days was the Oberoi Towers. So I went to Biki. I said, by the way, I've just come from Mukesh Ambani's office, and he's very keen for Reliance, one of their retail brands too. You know what Biki tells me? I'd have loved to do it, but I've already given my word to the Murjanis. And if you remember, the Murjani set up Gucci there. It's another matter that the whole brand flopped. When Amarjit exited, I still remember I was shooting for Guzarish, Sadi Leela Bansali. We were at Famous Studios. And I get a call from Biki saying, what do you think of Mukesh? I said, outstanding. Very good. I said, why? We've shaken hands. I said, I'm so glad. And now let me tell you, to this day, Reliance, Mukesh, Neeta, Manoj Modi, the children, the unbelievable, admiration-worthy respect they've had for Biki is something fantastic. Many people, Reliance has bought into the shares, will Reliance take over? No. What did Reliance do? Or what did Mukesh do? He helped save an Indian brand from being taken over by a company that at that time had very strong lineage pressures from British American Tobacco. Today, IDC has a great chairman, a chairman who's avowedly Indian, in that sense, Sanjeev Puri. But in those days, there were other compulsions, whatever the compulsions for Yogi were. If you see, Vikram today is the chairman. Biki, when he passed, he was the chairman emeritus. And Arjun is the MD. So the whole succession plan that had happened brilliantly. So in that sense, it's remarkable what went on.
I want to ask you your experiences at the Oberoi in the so many decades that you have visited and stayed at the hotels. What was What was the touch that Biki Oberoi had? What did he learn from his father in that? In about a minute or so, how has your experience at the Oberoi been?
It's been outstanding. It's been outstanding. You see, let me tell you, you know, there's there's a there's a definitive difference that you have to understand. And people say it. It's not that Sohail is saying it. The people always say that the Oberoi is cold and process driven. The Taj is warm and customer centric. Now, it's a good thing and a bad thing. At the Oberoi, predictability is the birthmark. You know, जब आप जाओगे ये होगा वो होगा ये होगा. You know that there's one man taking a decision of which crockery, which cutlery, which napkin, which serviette, what thread count, all of those. The Taj is run like a confederation, with which is a great thing. You know, it's run with a lot of credit being given to people on the ground, blah blah. Now you have to decide whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And increasingly, people are moving to the Taj model rather than the Oberoi model. Because it is impossible, Tarun, for one person to do everything. It is impossible. A Tarun Angia, if he's doing this show, he can't be producer, editor, dubber, voice recordist, everything rolled into one. Now, Biki genuinely felt that only he understood. It was what I call the P. Chidambaram syndrome. What Biki didn't know was not worth knowing in the hoteliering business. Of Chidambaram, it was said, what Chidambaram didn't know was not worth knowing. So, in many ways, Biki was that banyan tree of knowledge in whose shade nothing grew and in whose realm no dissidence and dissident or differentiated opinion was tolerated.
One
Now,
final
you and I
question
might. Sorry, go ahead.
that I want to ask you. If you had to give three pieces of advice non-chargeable to the Oberoi, and the next, what would that be?
A, don't change anything. B, continue to be what Biki Oberoi taught you to be. See, Biki used to take copious notes. So while there are brand manuals and brand identity stuff, the SOPs were part of the DNA. Number three, what I will tell Vikram and Arjun is to continue to strengthen the core at the Oberoi, the Oberoi School of Learning and Development, you know, OSLD or whatever it's called now.
OCLDS.
The point, Tarun, is you have to recognize that people, when they come to a hotel, their expectations are very high. Indians are the worst. Of my own country, I will say. When we go to a hotel, we think, wo hamare, you know, domestic help. So that's the level of expectation. What I will say, and you know, I don't need to say it, both Vikram and Arjun are well equipped to handle it. The Oberoi today is a chain that has carved a niche for itself. Unlike the Taj, the Oberoi is not home. The Oberoi is still a hotel. The Taj is home. And that is a tribute to the Taj. Because both were set up for different reasons. The Taj was set up because Indians and dogs were not allowed into five-star environments. So when Jamshedji Nasirwanji Tata founded the Taj in Bori Bandarao, which is now known as the Gateway of India, there was that reason. Rai Bahadur M.S. Oberoi, also for the same reason, saying that I want to give back something. But those weren't as compelling as the reasons for the Taj. Now, if you look at both the chains, both have contributed immensely to brand India, but both have very distinctive positioning statements. And as I said, and I will repeat, one is a hotel, first-rate hotel. The other is home. See, in a home, you can negotiate. A Tarun can tell his mother, नहीं माँ आपने भिंडी बनाई पर आज मेरे को भिंडी का मन नहीं कर रहा. आज मेरे को ना छौंके आलू दे दो. The Oberoi doesn't allow you that elasticity. And it's not bad. It is what brands are about. Have you ever gone into a Cartier showroom and negotiated? No. But you can negotiate with Nathuram Dhalamal. क्योंकि अब आपका जो familiarity level है, आपका जो exposure है, आपकी जो relationship है, it's different. The other thing is that Biki prided himself on being very, very harsh in a nice way with his people. He had a furious, very short temper. But it was a temper that was mired out of care. He didn't have any malice. So he would disagree with you. He would come across as disagreeable, but there'd be no malice. That, to my mind, is me. Also, remember, yeah, by about 75, 80, so in 30 years, he had moved from Biki Oberoi, the hotelier, to Biki Oberoi, the legend. तो जब लेजेंड्स कोई गलती करते ना, आप अपने आप ही माफ कर देते हो से यार, अब भगवान से क्या लड़ना. और हमारे इंडियंस में वो हैबिट ही है. इफ यू गेट सेव्ड इन एन एक्सीडेंट, you will say thank God. But if you die in an accident, you'll say ये तो लिखा ही हुआ था उसकी किस्मत में. You will never blame God for that person's death. So use that example of our human behavior, and then understand what we are saying in terms of Biki. But you see, the thing is that when you're actually talking about, like my wife Lakshmi used to say, and she still says, she says, the Oberoi has a CQ that is very hard to replicate because it was run by one man. And CQ is class quotient. एक बात है, when you're running 10 hotels versus running 150, it's not about compromise. Let me say this today, and I will say it publicly. The Rambagh today gives me a better experience than any Oberoi property or than any other property will give me. You know why? Because Ashok Rathore, or whether it's Puneet or whoever, today you have the chairman of the Tata Group, N. Chandrasekharan, deeply committed to upping the luxury quotient. So it's not going to be an easy ride for Vikram and Arjun. Also, please remember, the more companies get financially accountable, the more people are going to ask you. Biki was very good at managing operational cash flows. He was terrible at project costs. All his projects overran. But I'll tell you, after 2611, the horrific 2611, the Oberoi Bombay, the marble Greek Thassus was ripped apart, I think 3 or 4 times. अब यार ये cost controls तो आपको करने पड़ेंगे. But he didn't care, because it was run like a family enterprise. So my advice is, always run companies like families, but be accountable like accountants. You can't do this and not do the other. And to my mind, for me, my personal legacy, my personal memories of Biki will be late night calls to discuss where the jewels fall when you go for measurement to Huntsman. And you know what I'm referring to. It's a polite program, so I can't get into the details. My calls with him, I will remember when he said, what kind of a shaver you need for truffles. How the bhindi has to be fried and then put on butter paper, refried, and then moved out. Now, these are life lessons. Now, I keep telling Lakshmi, my wife, who's also a great cook, saying that it's not important about the taste. What is also important is the process. Where Oberoi scores is they have been able to marry process and passion. That is the ultimate grand gold prize, when process and passion get married.
So this was a very interesting conversation with you, and as usual, you are refined but free and frank. That is one thing that I like about you, and so much you shared with the viewers. This show will go down memory lane. A generation of hospitality industry professionals and customers and patrons of the hospitality industry will watch this. Appreciate your joining us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you as always.
Now we do that anecdote on your white hair.
Yeah.
So, wait,
Can I
let me
start?
just. No. So we have Mr.
So
Suhail
I've
Seth
often
with
been.
us. No, but we'll ask the question. So we have Suhail Seth with us. One thing a lot of people are curious about. You're an advisor to top Fortune 500 companies, one of the most well-known people in India and also globally, be it London or New York. And you've been a social person now for as many decades as I have seen. Be it your meeting with Prince Charles or the filmdom in Bombay to the social stories in New York. But one thing people are curious about, you never colored your hair black. These days, people go for hair transplants, they have fake hair, and many rich and famous that we know like people to believe that they have natural hair, but they have a mop of fake hair on their head, or they go for hair. What made you, despite being so socially active, not ever think of dyeing your hair?
Because it's too much of work. For instance, uh, every morning उठो देखो कि भाई कौन सा बाल सफेद हुआ है कैसे काले करो. ए बी my people, my clients, friends like you, they are fond of me or they seek my counsel not because of the color of my hair, but because of the color of my advice. Why should I spend so much of time trying to do this kind of stuff when I can easily use that time in reading more books, in writing more articles, speaking to a Tarun, sharing anecdotal instances, and that's how I've lived my life. I've never been bothered. Many years ago, one lady who I will not name, she came up to me at a breakfast, said, "Oh, you're eating scrambled eggs, you'll put on weight." So I said, to paraphrase Churchill, I may lose my weight tomorrow, but you're stuck with that face forever. So, why should I bother? And if you're comfortable in your own skin, see, the problem is we don't live our lives by what we believe. We live our lives by standards that others have created. And I'm not interested. I'm not bound, I'm not enslaved, and I have not been taught in my value architecture to go by what you feel or by the standards laid down by society. Because society is nothing but a mix of disparate, sometimes desperate, cross purposeful elements. I'm not interested. और मेरे को क्या अच्छा अब मैं अगर डाई कर लूं सपोज आई डाई माई हेड टुडे पीपल थ्रो स्टोन्स सेइंग ये देखो कौवा चले हंस की चाल. So why should you do this? You should be happy with what you have. As Mahatma Gandhi famously said, that I complained about the shoe I was wearing until I saw a man with no feet.
So you
We've got to
wear
be
your hair.
happy. Yeah, we've got to be happy with what we have. This constant. See, you can never be too rich or too thin. In Delhi, half the people, Delhi has imported Silicon Valley. Either people are Botoxed, implanted, transplanted. There's no real person. So a day will come when their own children will be unable to recognize them. कि भाई ये कौन आ गया घर पे? I have seen homes where the dogs have started barking at the owner's wife or the owner when that person has walked in because they've done so many things to their face. I'm very happy with what I have.
So in a world full of people showing what they're not, and you at least you cherish being truthful to and aging gracefully. So that's I think
Yeah, I'm
you.
60. I don't hide my age. People say, no. People say, oh, I'm going on 60. What the hell is going on 60? I'm 60. Take it or leave it. I'm not interested in dumbing down or reducing my age or, any such thing.
At the outset, your first comment on the passing away of Mr. Biki Oberoi.
So I just want to start with saying that he didn't build the Oberoi brand. The Oberoi
Yes.
brand was built by his late father, Rai Bahadur M.S. Oberoi, who started from scratch and built, to my mind, a great Indian chain. But it was only Indian in its origin. It was global in its outlook, it was global in its outreach, and it was global in its experiences. Remember, before any Indian hotel went abroad, uh, the Oberoi had already moved, whether it was Egypt or Mauritius, they'd already planted the Indian flag. Biki Oberoi was never meant to work. He was meant to be the playboy that he remained till he was 50. His older brother Tiki was the one running the chain, along with the cousins Gautam Khanna and Gautam's son Ashok and Ashok's wife Neelam. So this was the family construct at that point in time. And Rai Bahadur M.S. Oberoi being the empathetic, patriarchal, not patriarchal, paternal, actually. He was the kind of person who everyone adored and everyone loved, because here was a rags to riches story. But MS Oberoi also realized that in order to build the chain into what it needs to be, you need a family member to helm it. So when Tiki Oberoi passed away tragically and suddenly, and his son today, Arjun, is one of the key components of the Oberoi group, it was then that Biki Oberoi took over. And what Biki did, and this is very important, he turned the chain on its head. He moved it from a five-star hotel to a seven-star experience. Remember one thing, Tarun, people don't buy brands, they buy benefits. You don't buy Colgate, you buy the whitest teeth. You don't buy Listerine mouthwash, you buy great breath. In that sense, hotels are not about just sleep or about location or about service. They are overarchingly about an experience. And that's what Biki Oberoi attempted to do and did it remarkably well. Please remember that at that point in time, you had many doyens in the hotel business. Ajit Kerkar, who was running the Taj Group. But the Taj at that point in time did not have, to my mind, the luxury skill set that the Oberoi had for two reasons. Number one, the Taj was widely spread, and the Taj was run like a proper organization. It wasn't, one man's whims and fancies. So what happened was when Biki took over, the subtle changes that began happening were all to do with the customer experience. Remember when the Vilases came and Raj Vilas was the first, and he put his own son Vikram Oberoi as the general manager. And he told everyone. And Vikram was the one who said, look, when I'm the general manager, even though I'm Mr. Oberoi's son, please call me Vikram because I'm not that old. And that did not go down well with Mr. Oberoi. He was a very every 4 days. And if I called him and he didn't pick up, there would be a call that would be returned. And that call could be returned at 1 a.m., at 2 a.m., at 3 a.m. He would return the call. Don't you sleep? But his sleep cycle was different. He worked till very late and he got up very late. Unlike, some of us who get up very early and go to bed early. So Vilases was where Biki put the stamp of a Biki Oberoi on the Oberoi chain. He also put the stamp of unbridled luxury experiences as far as Indian hoteliering is concerned. Give credit to the Taj. At that point in time, Mr. Kumar was heading the Taj. They invested tons of money in regrouping, recalibrating, re-nurturing all their palace properties. So today, when you look at an Umaid Bhavan or a Rambagh, they are stunning testimonies. But the movement at that point in time was started by, you never imagined that people would pay.
So that was Mr. Suhail said for you, frank in your face, and he holds no punches. And also, this is the other side of Suhail said in that sense. Thank you for sharing this anecdote with us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Tarun.
Mr. Ryan Karanjawala, he is managing partner of one of India's largest litigation law firms at the Supreme Court of India, namely Karanjawala and Company. Good to see you. And looking forward to some interesting insights on this topic because Mr. Prithviraj Singh or Biki Oberoi, as he was fondly called, was man with such huge social relations. And you have been a Belvedere member, which is their elite club, as they call, of the Oberoi, and of course, a kind of a customer of the hotel for decades, and also somebody who knew Biki Oberoi. Could you just share a few words about him before we move ahead?
So, I first came to meet and got to know Biki Oberoi in a strange kind of way. This was somewhere in the mid-80s, so somewhere towards the latter part of the 80s, when I wanted to become, because I was a regular at the Taj, I wanted to become a member of Chambers. Now, you must remember that in those days, Chambers and Belvedere were among the more coveted clubs of India, and to sign off on the membership, it had to be done by the chairman of the company. So it was Biki for the Oberoi, and in those days it was Ajit Kerkar for the Taj. So somewhere in the mid 80s, I also knew Ravi Dubey, who's no more, but at that time was the general manager of Taj Delhi. And I went to Ravi, and he was my batchmate in school, and said, Ravi, yeah, try and make me a member of the chambers. So he said, I'll try and but it's difficult. It has to be signed off by the boss, so and so forth. Anyway, I applied, and in a short while, I got rejected. So I was a little, you know, crestfallen, and I went to my friend Nasri, who was a client and a friend at that time. And I said, yeah, Nasri, can you put in a word with the Taj group? Because he used to be close to the Tatas. Can you put in a word with the Taj group and make me a member of Chambers? So he said, I don't know about Chambers, Ryan, but if you want, I can make you a member of Belvedere. He said, see, I have very few friends in this world, but those I have are solid. And Biki Oberoi is a friend. And with that, I applied for Belvedere. Biki gave me my membership. And then a year or so later, I bumped into him somewhere, and then we started our relationship, which was in the beginning just a relationship of acquaintances. But somewhere in the year 98, when Atalji's government was in power, Biki came across for some advice on an issue relating to their property in Shimla, the property above Shimla, Wildflower Hall. They had some issue as far as Wildflower Hall was concerned. And somebody suggested that he take my view on it. And I gave him a piece of advice, which he took to rather fondly. And he was quite happy with that advice. And from there onwards, our interaction started on a deeper note. He was always very personally kind to me. I'll give you an example. Year 2001 was an important year in my life. I had an operation. I lost a kidney. I had a tumor, cancerous tumor. So I was in hospital. I had gone to Bombay for the operation, reached Kandy. So Biki and a lot of my friends, because I checked in on a Tuesday, I was operated on a Friday. So I was quite well till then. So a lot of my friends had come to see me, many from Delhi and all over from Bombay also. And Biki and his companion Reena Barua came across to see me. And he said, so where are you getting your food from? So I think my wife, Manik, said, okay, we're eating the hospital food. He said, no, that can't be done. And from that day till my operation, because obviously after the operation, I couldn't eat that kind of food. Lunch and dinner came in a packed, in a packed basket. They have those picnic baskets from the Belvedere every day till I had my operation. And then obviously after that, Biki and I kept on interacting on a closer level. As a hotelier, I think he was sui generis. There is nobody in India who has reached his levels of luxury. Luxury hoteliering has been something that I think Biki is the origin of as far as India is concerned. And the strange part about Biki's life is, and a lot of people have written about it also, that I think almost till the age of 45, 50, Biki did no work. He just traveled around the world. He was a general playboy, went with a jet set all over the world, saw the best hotels in the world. And that's why when he came in to the hotelier, when he came and took over the hotels and started running them even while his father was alive, he ultimately, of course, became a chairman in the 2000s, but he started running the hotels much earlier on. He brought to India a certain level of luxury hoteliering that nobody has quite seen. And one of the attributes that I remember of Biki was that unlike most people, he was never concerned as to when you went to him and you said, I remember once I'd gone to him and I spoke to him and I said, oh, Biki, I stayed in one of your villases. I forget which one, whether it was Amar Vilas or Raj Vilas, I forget which one. I just went and I visited your villas. So he didn't say how was it. He said, what according to you were the mistakes? The whole difference in Biki's approach to things was that he was not looking for validation. He didn't really want to know from you what a great hotelier he was. He was looking for, and he always sought constructive criticism. because he would always try and act upon anything that he felt was constructive and useful to his business. And that is why I think he was able to excel in the manner in which he did.
Okay. Could you also share one anecdote on your experience at the Oberoi over the years, which was headed by Mr. Biki Oberoi?
So I never really met Biki much in the hotel. He would come once in a while, and he always believed, and Biki was a great believer that the general manager should, as far as possible, stay on premise, because his job was to be in the hotel, walking up and down. There were no real incidents with Biki in the hotel, in the sense that, you went with him and this happened or that happened. None that I remember. But it was an overall presence that he exuded. And, it's a great credit to both his father and him that within 2 generations, his father started off as a clerk in the Clark's Hotel in Shimla, took it over, and then slowly built the hotel chain. And, in those days, when he opened the Bombay Hotel, they almost went bankrupt, because I remember someone telling me, a friend of mine told me, every day from the collections that were received in the Delhi hotel, it would be put in a bag and flown. And that money would be used, the excess money would be used to pay whatever the running bills of the Bombay building hotel were. Within 2 generations, starting from one hotel, they ended up with having a chain of hotels that could match almost any other chain of hotels in the world as far as luxury was concerned. And the interesting thing, again, as I told you, and this is sort of something that maybe someone can do research on. There are 2 people I know who, in the early years of their life, just traveled around the world. One, as I told you, was Biki Oberoi. He was a playboy, jet setter. The other person, which you may not know, was Naveen Patnaik, the CM of Orissa. Naveen, in his early days, all the way to midlife, maybe his 40s, I don't exactly know in his case how old he was just traveling around the world. He was a jet setter. He knew everybody. He knew Jackie Onassis. He knew Mick Jagger. He knew everybody. Once he got into politics, he just stayed in politics. And today, if he wins his next election, he's likely to set the record as the longest serving Chief Minister of India. So it just shows that it's an interesting case study to see how people who did nothing for the early part of their lives except travel can suddenly adapt to a different environment and reach the zenith of their profession.
Thanks so much for this insight and anecdote on PRS of Biki Oberoi, as he's called. In a sense, a generation has passed away. A generation of Indian hospitality has passed away with his going. Appreciate your joining us and sharing these anecdotes with the viewers. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.